React won by default and it's killing front end innovation. So I'm guessing this article is probably to do with everyone basically using React and Next.js now. And the issue with that is basically the same problem with jQuery where everyone's basically using it. But is it actually the best thing or is there better frameworks out there? I already saw a framework last week that I tried for the first time. Let's see if it's mentioned here. Yes, Svelte. And I was like, whoa, this is actually pretty good. And apparently it's way faster. So yeah, maybe React shouldn't be winning by default, but let's read this article to find out more. React is no longer winning by technical merit. Today, it's winning by default. That default is now slowing innovation across the front-end ecosystem. When teams need a new front end, the conversation really starts with what are the constraints and which tool best fits them 100%. If I'm working in a team and I say, hey, let's build a web front end and someone starts saying, hey, so are we looking, I'll be like, what are you talking about? We all know React. Let's code it in React. What the hell is, what are you talking about? It often starts with, let's use React. Everyone knows React. That reflex creates a self-perpetuating cycle where network effects rather than technical fit decides architecture. Meanwhile, framework with real innovation struggle for adoption. Svelte compiles away framework overhead. Solid delivers fine-grained reactivity without virtual DOM tag. These approaches can outperform React model in common scenarios, but they rarely get a fair evaluation because React is chosen by default. I guess the question I'm hoping this gets into is, but by how much do they outperform React? Because if we're talking like, I don't know, like tiny 0 point something percent, 1%, something that's not going to be noticeable by most of the world that is using fast internet, doesn't really matter. React is excellent at many things. The problem isn't React itself, it's the React by default mindset, the innovation ceiling. React's technical foundation explains some of today's friction. The virtual DOM was a clever solution for 2013's problems, but as Rich Harris outlined, the virtual DOM is pure overhead. It introduces work modern compilers can often avoid. So basically, the virtual DOM is how React works to decide which components to re-render after you make a change. So it basically creates a virtual DOM and it does the calculations in the virtual DOM and then it basically reflects the changes in the actual DOM. And I guess there's a lot of things about this that makes it not very effective and not very fast. And especially if you're trying to build something really complicated in React, where something like, for example, I was trying to build a video editor and that essentially needed to update every few milliseconds. That literally did not work. It completely broke React because it's basically having to do the whole virtual DOM comparison and updates every milliseconds. And it basically just like, that could not work. So I guess this is a situation where React is just completely useless. Hooks addressed class component pain, but introduce new kinds of complexity. Dependency arrays, still closures, misused effects. Even React's own doc emphasized restraint. You might not need an effect. Server components improve time to first byte, but add architectural complexity and new failure modes. The React compiler is a smart solution that automates patterns like use memo and use callback. If you're not sure what the React compiler is, essentially in the past, you would have to like use memo or use callback to perform really expensive calculations essentially. But React compiler basically just does this for you. So React actually like looks at your code, realizes which part of it is expensive, and then they wrap it in use memo or use callback behind the scene. Its existence is also a signal. We're optimizing around constraints baked into the model. Contrast this with alternative approaches like Svelte, Rune, simplify reactivity at compile time, solid, fine-grained reactivity, updates exactly what changed, Quicks resumability eliminates traditional hydration. If you guys understand what each of these mean, feel free to comment it below because I have no idea what they mean. I only know about Svelte. Basically doing the compile time, essentially doing what the React compiler is doing, but just a lot better. These aren't incremental tweaks to React models. They are different models with different ceilings. Innovation without adoption doesn't change outcomes. Adoptions can't happen when the choice is made by reflex. Okay, cool. The technical debt we're all carrying. Defaulting to React often ships a runtime and reconciliation costs we no longer question. Even when it's fast enough, the ceiling is lower than compile time or fine-grained models. Developers' time is spent managing re-renders, effect dependencies, add hydration boundaries instead of shipping value. The broader lesson from performance research is consistent. JavaScript is expensive on the critical path. We're centered mental models around React's pattern instead of web fundamentals, reducing portability of skills and making architectural inertia more likely. The loss isn't just performance, it's opportunity cost when better fit alternatives are never evaluated. For instance, benchmarks like the JS Framework benchmark show alternatives like Solid achieving up to 2 to 3x faster updates in reactivity heavy scenarios compared to React. Yeah, I guess the problem with this is technical debt, yeah, but there's massive technical debt when you have to learn a new framework like Svelte. I want to understand, like the only thing that would make me consider Svelte or any other framework is if you literally show me this is a front end built with Svelte, this is a front end built with React. This one is 200 times faster, allowing you to build this application way better. But I don't know if it's the case. I feel like the differences are so small. That's why we never consider this. Because I guess if I was going on websites and it was super fast, and then I looked into it and found out that we're using Svelte, then I'll be more tempted to actually like learn about it. And also, they are not so different in terms of how you're writing the code. So I don't feel like it's jQuery versus something else. I feel like they're basically very similar in how the code is written. So it's not like the syntax saves me a lot of time. Yes, I don't know. I feel like the differences are not that crazy, but maybe this section will go more into that. So the framework's being suffocated, Svelte. The compiler revolution. Svelte shift works to compile time. No virtual DOM, minimal runtime. Components become targeted DOM operation. The mental model aligns with web fundamentals. So what this essentially means is Svelte basically is making direct DOM operations. So for example, if you say change the text in the text field to this, it's basically going to find the ID of that text field. It does this all at compile time. It gives the ID a text field. And when that operation runs, it's actually just changing that exact item in the DOM rather than basically trying to do the whole virtual DOM thing to realize what needs to be re-updated. Okay, let's look at Solid. Solid delivers fine-grained reactivity with JS familiarity. Updates flow through Signal directly to affected DOM nodes, bypassing reconciliation bottlenecks, strong performance character. Yeah, but you're not telling me how fast this is. It's just saying, I want to know is it easier to write code or is it 10x faster? That's like the most important thing. The network effect prison. React's dominance creates self-reinforcing barriers. Job posting asks for React developers rather than front-end engineers. True. Limiting skill diversity, component libraries, and team muscle memory creates institutional inertia. That's very true. Imagine trying to learn Svelte right now because you're looking for a job. That would be the most stupid decision to make because your employer does not care if you know Svelte and the employer doesn't care if it's like 0.5 times faster than React. The most important thing is we've written an application in React. Do you know how to write React? That's it. Punto. Full stop. Risk-averse leaders choose the safe options. Schools teach what jobs ask for. The cycle continues independent of technical merit. Yeah, I would say it's good to be risk-averse, though, because if you're starting a company, I mean, everything is already against you in terms of 99% of startups failing. Why take a risk and start using a new framework that is going to be very hard to hire for because it's 0.5 times faster? I don't really understand why anyone would do it. I think the only reason I'll change from React to another framework is if it's way faster to write code in those frameworks or if the code is just way cleaner. I think this is how you can like break out of it. Okay, but let's see what he thinks about breaking out of the network effect. Escaping requires deliberate action at multiple levels. Technical leaders should choose based on constraints and merits, not momentum. Companies can allocate a small innovation budget to trying alternatives. Developers can upskill beyond a single mental model. This is really, really, really hard because if your website is already built in one framework, it's very hard for you to experiment with another framework, except you're launching a new, tool that has nothing to do with your current website or it's hosting or it's not in the same domain, it's in a subdomain. Maybe that's the time to like innovate and try something new. We used to do this at my company, actually. I remember when Flutterweb came out, we actually built accept an invite page in Flutterweb just to see how good it was, and it was completely shite. But I can see, yeah, this is good. Like I might actually try this out. Maybe just like build a quick project in Svelte and just see, like, is it a lot better? I doubt it will be because, like I said, I already built some small things with it. But yeah, educators can teach framework agnostic concepts alongside specific tools. Open source contributors can help alternative ecosystem mature. Change won't happen automatically. It requires conscious choice. Do you know what's funny? I bet the person who wrote this article uses React every single day. If by any chance you end up watching this video, let us know what you use. But I bet you use React. That's my bet. I'll bet like maybe $50 on it. I get what the writer is trying to say. I don't agree per se, but I understand what they're trying to say. I think React is just really good with Next.js right now. I'm always open to trying new things, but I need to just like that thing has to win not by just increasing speed by 0.5%. It has to win by either like quadrupling speed, or the syntax is just so clean. It's just so easy for me to just build an application I'm trying to build.